Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, June 7th at 6:30. We would call the regular session to order. Those attending tonight's meeting should be aware that the meeting is being audio and video recorded by APAC and ASRSD. Any audience members who wish to record any part of the meeting must inform the chair, who will announce the recording. This is to comply with the Massachusetts wiretap statute. The listings of matters not those reasonably anticipated by the chair
Recording in progress.
May be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, or other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Per the Air Shirley Regional School Committee Policy BEDH, public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between citizens in the school committee. It's a citizen's opportunity to express an opinion on the issues of school committee's business as posted on the meeting agenda. Citizens will have 3 minutes to express their views. If I could have a motion to open the meeting. Call the meeting. Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Moving on to item 2, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Plunkett, would you like to lead us tonight?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the quiz that someone had for me today was what was yesterday. And if anybody came up with 6-6, I will respect your history.
Oh.
What was the day in history?
Normandy, there you
did?
go.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, you win.
What's even more important, though, it was my birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Michelle.
That's why I know, because
All right, we need to enter into executive session. This won't be.
Madam Chair, if I may, if it would be possible to go a little out of order, because we do have some students and teachers here.
That's what I was going to ask. That's why I asked
My
if we
apologies.
wanted to do it at the end.
I thought you were referring to the presentation from Lyncher Leadership Academy.
Okay, so skipping around a little bit, we have a presentation tonight, and if we want to do that right now. Do you want to introduce them, Mr. Renda? Dr. Renda? Oh, roll call.
Mr. Redman,
Here.
Mrs. Ranger,
here.
Mr. Conti,
Here.
Mrs. Reshus,
Here.
Mr. Rupert,
Here.
Ms. Stan.
Here.
Sorry, Michelle, I'm out of practice. So we have some presentation tonight. We'd like to do that next.
We have a few things going on tonight. First, I would like to invite Mr. Christie up, Principal Christie, and he will introduce our new 22-23 school year high school student representatives.
So we have one of our student representatives here tonight. The other one, unfortunately, is not feeling terribly well. So good evening, Dr. Renda. Good evening, members of the school committee. I'm thrilled to be able to present to you 2 rising seniors to be the ASRHS student representative to the school committee.
Yay.
This year, Alicia Town did an amazing job telling you about the various events at the high school and her search for a post-secondary plan. At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing the school representatives to the school committee for the 22-23 school year. Ms. Ana Sanchez, and unfortunately not present with us tonight is Mr. DJ Cybor. Ms. Sanchez is an active member of our DEI committee at the high school. In addition to her work with National Honor Society, Ms. Sanchez tutors students at the Page Hilltop School. She dances and she does ballet, contemporary, and jazz, and has just completed her training to teach students aged 4 to 11. Ms. Sanchez's favorite subject is English, and her favorite class this year was Intro to German Culture with Ms. Whitmire, which was a truly unique course for us, one we haven't run in about 6 or 7 years. In her future, Ms. Sanchez sees herself as an English teacher or an elementary teacher. For Mr. Cybor, at school, Mr. Cybor loves art and PE. One of his favorite teachers is Ms. Alphin, our mobility specialist, who unfortunately will be sorely missed as she is retiring at the end of the year. Mr. Cybor already misses the seniors, one of whom was often his partner in class. At home, Mr. Cyborg likes watching Hallmark holiday movies. Apparently, he's seen them all. Next year, Mr. Cyborg is looking forward to looking at career opportunities, which he will be exploring with Mr. Lindstruth. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sanchez and Mr. Cyborg. Does anyone have any questions for either me or Ms. Sanchez?
Well, we would like to comment that, welcome, we're so glad to have you. It won't be that torturous. We'll try to make it easy on you, but, you know, tell us funny stuff, because that keeps us up. So that would be great. Too, that means we have one at every meeting, and not just every other meeting? Are we going to alternate them?
It's certainly something we can talk about. Mr. Cyborg has a series of medical illnesses, so he will be able to join us. We hope a fair amount of the time, but there are going to be times where...
Well, we can have them together and do every other or something like that.
Absolutely.
Whatever you feel is good. Whatever you feel is good. I'd also like to comment on the fantastic graduation that we had last Friday night, and the excellent work of our grounds crews and Bob Briggs, who did a fantastic job in organizing it and setting it up. I thought it was very, very well done. If anybody else wishes to comment, don't let me stop you. But never thing more fun than seeing kids graduating.
Thank you. I agree. It was truly wonderful. I thought the student speeches were amazing. Mrs. Granger gave a wonderful speech. Dr. Renda gave a fantastic speech. And you're right, Mr. Briggs and the crew here really do a phenomenal job keeping our grounds and really the school itself looking unbelievable. It's hard to look around and imagine that this was a school that opened 7 years ago because it looks like it's brand new. And we are thrilled with all the progress that's being made on the fields, and we are aiming for substantial completion in the second week in August.
Sure, please do.
So I just about graduation, one quick comment. Like,
Yes.
I think it worked perfectly for the size of the class that we had. We're lucky that the year fell the way it did to be able to have graduation out front. It worked out really well. It was intimate and well done. And Anna, I just have Anna, is it Anna or Anna? Okay. If at any point you have questions, you want to know, like, you know, how it works or whatever, and you want to meet with any of us before you start in the fall, let us know. Or email, or however you want to get in touch. We'll be happy to talk you through it so it's not so daunting in September. Sure.
I would just add to that. So last year, I think, so I'm new to this still. I'm going to say that for at least another year. Last year, it was great to hear all the updates, and we got a lot of information. But I'd also say if there's ever things that you want to bring back, like I do think that this can be two-way communication. So feel free to put us on the spot if there's things that students would think are helpful, or yeah, you have a platform and you and DJ should take advantage of it, and definitely see us as resources at your disposal.
So thank you. What Mr. Caleri just handed out is a list of our graduates. We had 66 graduates this year. We have one that's still working a little bit on completing an ingenuity course, but we hope he'll be completed by the end of summer. And this lists their post-high school plans. So it's an impressive list. It's varied, and we wish all of our graduates the best of luck.
Well, it's pretty obvious from the speeches we had a very mature group, you know, and very insightful, and it was very good. It was wonderful, and the weather held. I watched that black cloud for a long time. It never got here.
I feel like that's the second or third graduation in a row where we've been heavily watching the weather. I had a few different Doppler maps up on my computer, and we're tracking it throughout the week. But we were very lucky. I know the students really wanted to have it on Friday night. So I was thrilled that the weather held off.
It was perfect.
This is really cool. Thank you for giving this. This is a nice synopsis of where everyone's going and what they're doing. It'd be
You're
interesting to see what next year would say.
I agree. The one part that unfortunately I couldn't fit on is we actually have a column for where students have majors and what the intended majors were. Unfortunately, we couldn't shrink it enough to fit it all on one page. But if anyone would like, I'm more than happy to share the spreadsheet as well.
No, it's really cool. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Well, I think we also need to mention that the class advisors did a really good job during COVID and bringing that class through COVID and everything. So thanks, guys. You did a great job. So if you want to give them personal.
There's one right there.
I know.
And I just want to mention the boot did not happen at graduation.
I was gonna say, I didn't see that on Friday.
It was Sunday morning when I woke up to a text from Miss Malilla saying, this happened yesterday. My foot's not feeling so great.
Oh, no.
I'd like to thank you.
Christie, a student update. One of your graduates, Matt Doyle, just graduated from Yale, accepted a position for BAE. He's moving to Austin, Texas, and likely enrolling in UT to get his graduate degree while going to work. So things move forward. Wasn't that long ago, he was burning around here. Now he's done with Yale and moving on.
He actually stopped by on Thursday or Friday of last week to give us an update. He looks wonderful. It was great to hear that he's moving to Austin and pursuing future studies. Truly an outstanding student when he was here, and that's continued on. A really great young man. Thank you.
Anybody else, anything like to say? Thank you very much, Chrissy. We will be
Thank you.
looking forward to seeing you, I know. Would want to be here.
Madam Chair, if we could move to the presentation of the seal by literacy.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Cleary?
Sure. So as you may recall, we've shared this information with the school committee, I think 2 other times at these meetings about the seal of biliteracy, that this was our first year kind of implementing it. And I wanted to bring both Rachel Malillo and Victoria McCormick to share a little bit of a short presentation regarding the work that they had done this year. As I shared with you in previous meetings, these were the 2 that were behind the scenes doing all the work, kind of promoting and marketing the seal of biliteracy concept, and getting the kids to participate, and they wanted to give you a more formal update than what I had provided before. So I wanted to first say thank you to both Rachel and Victoria for all of their work this year. It's been amazing to work with them, but more I'm just kind of supporting. They're doing kind of the heavy lifting on this, which has been really amazing to give this opportunity to our kiddos. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Rachel and Victoria. Mr. Tebow, can you pull up the presentation on
I wasn't sure of that.
that screen?
Can you give me 2 minutes, please?
Sure.
How long in the boot, Miss Malillo? 10 days?
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
No.
Just in time for the end of school.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. It's not a pleasant surprise to my weekend, though.
Yeah, I can
But I
imagine.
got 2 miracles last week, so I got a non-rainy prom and a non-rainy graduation.
Yeah.
There you go. While we're waiting, you could tell us about the prom, since none of us.
Oh, the prom was wonderful. There were about 150 kids who went to our prom in Massachusetts, and it seemed like they all had a great time. It was 3 hours long. They got to do the ski lift up the mountain and everything. I heard the food was great.
Good. Creative prom.
It was perfect. It was nice.
The food was great. I did hear that. I would never sneak in. The last place I want to be is a high school prom.
Oh, they're so pretty. They're all dressed up, but it's so cute.
They did. I saw them at
Some
picture
of them I
time.
didn't even recognize because they're just like at
I know.
school they wear t-shirts and sweatpants.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, hello. Are you all set?
All right.
All right, great. So this year, like Mr. Caleri said, this was our first year implementing the Seal of Biliteracy. The Seal of Biliteracy is an award provided by the states that can recognize high school graduates that attain a intermediate high proficiency level according to the ACTFL scale, the American Council of Teaching of Foreign Languages, in 2 or more languages. So English and another language, or English and another beyond that language. The Seal of Biliteracy offers the recognition and of the value and benefits of being bilingual. It is a physical seal that appears on the transcript or diploma of the graduating senior, and it's an accomplishment for future employers or for college admissions. It demonstrates the proficiency that a student has. A little bit about our process over the year. In September and October, we worked to create a letter that was sent out to every family in the district. And that was just to notify all families that this is a program that's happening. And then we reached out to students to promote the program and have students kind of sign up, and we explained what it is and got them to sign up for it. In November and December, we kind of met with the students. We arranged like the languages that we needed to have testing for. We arranged the testing funds with Mr. Cleary, and we chose the specific testing platform for the languages that we needed. In January, we set up the testing, we arranged the dates, and in February, we met with the students to run through all the technological problems or procedures, how to type their language on a computer. And in the spring, we did the testing, and in late spring, we did the reporting.
So just a little bit of the overview of the numbers. So we had 20 students that tested. We had 2 students that tested in 2 languages. Tested 6 different languages: Arabic, ASL, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Spanish. And the cool thing about this program is it brings light to not only languages taught here at ASRSD, but also to students who have experience and exposure to languages, whether it's their native language, a heritage language, or anything outside in the community. So that's a really cool part of this program. And then we were able to award 5 Massachusetts SEALs, which is an intermediate high level. And then we were able to additionally award 13 what's called the Global Seal of Biliteracy, so it's one step down, but it's an intermediate mid-level. And these are both awesome achievements. And so what can they what do these get the students, like, what can they use them for? Of course, applying to college, a little late for some of the seniors, but they can still, you take that going forward. Demonstrate their language skills in outside universities, outside of the US. Rachel has one student going to McGill, which will be super useful. To teach in the future, students that are awarded this seal get a fee waiver for the MTEL, so 4 years later, you need to remember that, but it's kind of nice to encourage people to become teachers and language teachers at that. And then just in general, demonstrate language proficiency for future and current employers and or the military. This seal is a way that employers can actually look up students, and it verifies that they speak these languages both proficiently and for the workforce.
After the implementation of this program this year, the structure is in place for it to really kind of continue to proceed smoothly in future years. A lot of the same steps will be followed, and it's just kind of getting in new students and making sure that everyone's aware that this is an opportunity for them. Hopefully we'll have more students who are able to earn the Seal of Biliteracy, and we're hoping that by offering this, it also encourages parents to continue teaching home languages at home, so that they can be able to read, write, listen, and speak these languages. We can also award the seal at more levels to recognize as many students as possible. This year, we just did it in juniors and seniors, and so we can look at that.
Yeah, there's also after we kind of went through this whole process, we were kind of looking at how do other schools do this, and how can we grow from beyond the first year. And this is a fairly new program. It started as a pilot year in 2018, so it's not fully developed yet, and there are schools that within the Massachusetts seal can break it down even more, so we could maybe award 3 different levels, or try to get students to reach that higher level distinguished seal. So it might be kind of nice to just break it down a little bit more and be able to recognize more students.
And juniors are also eligible to retest if they did not meet the criteria this year. And if they missed only one section, they can just retest in that one section. If they missed more than one section, they would have to retest in all sections.
And just to add one quick thing on that, I think after having done this for a year, we can hope to award more next year because we're familiar with the process and with the test and how it kind of goes, and can guide students before they get there.
Agreed. We appreciate all support, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Could you speak briefly to what the testing protocol is?
Sorry, what?
The testing protocol?
Yeah, so we actually tested in this room. But basically, the students test in all 4 sections. So there's a section on reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And they have to do the input skills first. So like the reading and the listening before they do the output, the speaking and the writing. And they kind of go through the 4 sections, and as they take the test, this particular test that we use to administer it, it adjusts to the student as the student takes it. So it kind of finds their level by giving them different level questions. It's like, you're doing great in this section, then it bumps you up a level. Can you do this? Can you do that? And they end up getting a proficiency score.
That hurt my little Emily.
So they do end up getting an overall proficiency score, and that score in itself, beyond just the seal of biliteracy, can be super useful in gathering information about their language skills in general and us as teachers, which is cool.
I'm just curious, do you know how common is this in Massachusetts, or kind of roughly how many schools have adopted this program?
Do I know an exact number? No, I know that there are a lot of schools and that all of our surrounding schools have pretty much
Yeah, I'd
implemented
say
it.
like, I don't know an exact number either, but most schools are in their like first year or 2 of implementing it, so everyone's kind of figuring it out at the same time. So it's nice to kind of be in that mix and bounce ideas off of the schools that we collaborate with for different PDs.
Is it something that you identified and brought to the school?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
kind of,
We saw it happening in other districts. We saw that it was offered. It popped up in some of our language communities that we're a part of, and we were like, hey, let's bring this. This is a great way to recognize our students who are bilingual.
it
Oh,
also
that's
felt
great.
really,
Thank you for taking the initiative to take this to the school.
yeah, it also felt really attainable, you know what I mean, like something that we could implement and like realistically, why not recognize 18 students, right, so it's awesome.
Yeah.
Kevin, to your point, it was also part of our, it is still technically part of our strategic plan.
Great.
So it was in there as a, an element I think we identified when this first came out, and we were waiting for the right people to come along to kind of help push this along. And so with Rachel and Victoria kind of behind this, championing it, there was no doubt that it was going to be successful.
When you looked at the number of students who completed and were awarded both the Massachusetts and Global Seals, how did that break down in terms of number of students who reached different levels of certification or attainment based on languages spoken and taught at home versus those taught in school? And did you see was it half the students are bringing languages from home, or is it 90% it was from school? What was the...
I'd say the breakdown was pretty split. I think for the Massachusetts Seal, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, we had 2 native speakers and 3 that learned it in the district. The Global Seal, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but in reviewing it, I'd say probably like 75 learned in the school, 25 native speakers. And identifying some of those native speakers is challenging because we put it out there to the students again and again when they're like, we don't check our email. So I think that's kind of a goal for next year too, to try to like get in amongst the students really early and identify some of those kids that might be good candidates.
And I think also with that, that's part of the importance of notifying the entire district, so that as new students come in, as parents are raising their children, they can see that there's value in their languages that they're speaking at home. And then hopefully we'll have more students with all 4, because they have to meet these levels in all 4 domains. And so we might have a student who's fluent in speaking Arabic, but they might not be able to write it.
Right.
And so making sure that parents are aware that this is something that they can get is important.
That's great. And I was going to say, my follow-up question was going to be around, particularly I think in the elementary schools, and how we can make the broader community more aware. I think the issue that you named at the end is really important. Many multilingual learners they're speaking other languages at home, they're supporting their family in different ways, but reading and writing, particularly in an academic way, is something that they are not doing as frequently as students who are learning their language in school. And so that is something I think if families are more aware, they may emphasize, they may find ways to bridge those gaps. Or we can think about like, how do we start offering or thinking about ways that students are given exposure to languages that are not, I don't know all the languages that are taught in the high school, but whether it's Arabic, Mandarin, just thinking about the breadth of languages that are offered in an academic way, I think is something to consider for the future.
Although I will say that in business and global business aspects, almost nobody writes in their second language. And if you're a part of a corporation, they're going to tell you specifically you don't do that because you don't understand all the syntax and everything else. Everything is communicated. The world language now is English. And even if you're fluent in German or Mandarin or anything else, you can. The key is being able to connect with people verbally. That's the real up from a business aspect. And the writing aspect, when something has to be done officially written, there are staff people that you will draft your letter, and then staff people will put it in the language if it has to be changed language.
But they won't be able to get that certification.
No, I know.
So
I'm just saying, when you, I'm sure in your circles, as you discuss exactly how this program runs and how it's implemented, they may want to take a look at how they weight certain aspects of what's going on. I mean, being able to listen to and understand the language and speak functionally is a long ways away from me being able to write a paragraph. So in your discussions, in your language circles with other schools and districts and all the rest of that stuff, they may want to at least kick that point around a little bit and figure out, where their long-term goals and objectives should be and how they really want to weight the exams.
One
Please
quick,
do.
I just wanted to congratulate you both for getting students that are that prepared to pass these types of tests. I mean, the fact that they're rounded enough to do all 4 sections and pass and achieve these levels is a testament to you guys. And so I just want to congratulate you as much as the students, because they couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, do you have anything you want to push us on? Like we need more of? Always use this opportunity.
I don't think so. I didn't bring my.
Thanks for.
I didn't bring my notes. Languages in elementary school? More teachers?
That's the way to do it.
Right?
That's where their brains are.
Okay. Do we have anybody else tonight that is going to go in? Since I'm so confused on this
Well,
agenda.
Joyce, maybe what I'll say is, as you're walking out the door, sorry, just one last thing. To that point, we've had presentations this year with computer science classes going to the elementary schools, to the middle schools. When I was a kid, I remember as a high school student going to our elementary school and doing foreign language clubs and activities. And you just did things like teach songs and things like that. That may be a way, in the absence of having a formal second language program in your elementary schools or middle schools, giving high school students some practice, some mentorship opportunities, and exposing younger students to foreign languages. So,
I will comment on that.
Yeah.
As I'm running out the door. We have done things like that in the past, and we look forward to continuing doing those things. I know that at the high school level, between the high school and the elementary school, there are often scheduling conflicts.
right.
So that's
Yeah,
the
it's
biggest
easier said than done. Right.
We do love doing things like that. So.
I will say that same
Yes, Mr. Christie.
school, even right now, I could break into no problem. I could roll that from top to bottom. That was one of the things that, it put kids in a different place. And anytime, when those kids in the elementary school, they're in basically one room with one teacher for a long time. And this is so far afield from a lot of the stuff they do. They're usually pretty excited to do that kind of stuff. So I think just to have a light duty introduction to it, and we all know that their brains are going to accept it a lot faster than ours are.
About 4 years ago, I got to take my French 5s down to the elementary school, and I just met those 7th graders. And they remembered me, and I was
There
like,
you go.
whoa.
It was a wonderful combination. It was Miss Tebow's class, no relation to Mr. Tebow.
Yeah.
And as Ms. Malolo said, now that those students are in middle school, we were fortunate enough to have Ms. Malolo go to the middle school, reconnect with those students, and they shared their love of that experience. It really had them thrilled to take French with you again. and is pushing them forward. So this is something we now expect to see pay dividends at the high school with more students taking French.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Dr. Renda, do we have anyone who should be presenting before we go to executive session?
I would defer to you, Madam Chair. We do have a presentation from Lynch Leadership Academy. They are here, but
Maybe they would like to go before we have our little recess.
I'm
Not
sure
that it's
that-
going to take that long,
I'm
but
sure they would.
sitting around and waiting for people seems like a waste of their
That'd be
time.
great.
So, the
Michelle, could you-
ongoing, it's under ongoing business, the update on the equity audit. And if you would like to introduce everybody, please.
Sure, Michelle, is Jen ready? So with us tonight, we have Jen Colasaco, who is the Executive Director of Lynch Leadership Academy. LLA is the group conducting and now finalizing the equity audit report. Tonight, she's going to present some preliminary findings and I believe some preliminary recommendations. Is that a fair introduction, Jen?
Yes, hello. Nice
Okay.
to see you all. Thanks for having me back. And I just I am pleased to share some of our preliminary findings with you, but just want to check on the sort of technology setup on your end. Is it best if I share my screen, or do you have the slides projected on a different screen? I can't quite tell from the video what's best.
Hi Jen, this is Mike Tebow. We actually have you on projected on a screen, so if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, that would be great.
Perfect. Be happy to.
Great.
And can you, does that look like the right thing that I shared? Everyone can see the title page to the slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Adam. As Adam said, I'm Jen. I'm the Executive Director of Lynch Leadership Academy, and my team and I have been engaging in the equity audit with the district over the last several months, and I'm going to present sort of some preliminary initial findings and recommendations. There will be a much more robust report, forthcoming quite soon. But for now, I thought I'd take us through a reminder of what the process is and some of our initial findings, and then see if there's any questions. So just to sort of bring us all back on the same page, we were brought in really to examine the practices and data of the school district through an equity lens to ensure access and opportunity for all students. And in particular, we wanted to ensure that we could be a partner in helping the realization of the anti-racism resolution that you all approved in October 2020. So we engage in this process through 7 steps. We started with some initial entry conversations with Dr. Renda and the district leadership team. We engaged in school reviews, visited each school and observed a number of classes and other aspects of the school. We looked at district level data and curriculum. We looked at data, MCAS data, other data, etc. We engaged with stakeholder focus groups and gave out surveys to those stakeholders, which students, families, administrators, teachers, etc. We will be, as I mentioned, submitting a full report. And then we hope to continue after that report to work with you and with the leadership team to do any collaborative review and action planning that would be helpful for us to be a thought partner in. So I'm just going to take us through some of the high-level initial findings from each step in the process. So when we began our initial conversation, it was clear that every member of the district leadership team was invested in this process, shared a desire for us to gather information from multiple stakeholder groups to have, as robust and complete a picture of the experience across the district as possible. And we're really willing to commit to engage in the process by providing data, materials, logistical support to really ensure that this process could be implemented and completed smoothly. So the next piece that we engaged in was the school reviews. Myself and members of my team conducted a full day review at each of the 4 schools. And I want to share some initial findings. 100% of the principals articulated a desire to build their skills in leading this work. And yet at the same time, the majority of those school leaders also articulated a lack of knowledge of what to do next. So a real desire to learn some concrete next steps. 100% of the schools we observed to have a student-centered, warm culture that was consistent across the district. We did note through our class observations that at least 50% of the tasks in each school were not yet aligned with grade level standards, and that none of the schools presented a sufficient counter-narrative to students, while some schools did have evidence of an attempt. And just to sort of explain that term quickly, when we say a counter-narrative, we mean an active, explicit and implicit intentional narrative that we're handing over to students, particularly students from historically marginalized groups, that pushes back on any dominant views of them. So if there are stereotypes about students because of race or gender, sexual orientation, disability, that would say they are not as capable, they are not as smart, they are not as deserving. The absence of that message in and of itself is not sufficient. What the research would show is that there needs to be an explicit message to counter the sort of dominant societal messaging that they get. So we did not yet see that, though we saw some schools have pockets of that. For example, there was in the elementary school in Shirley at Laurie White, it was Women's History Month, and there was a really nice display in the beginning of the entrance to the school for women authors that was diverse racially and ethnically, and really sort of empowered this idea that women of all backgrounds could be successful authors. That would be an example of a piece of a counter-narrative. Some other initial findings combining from steps 3 and 4 for both looking across the district at data and other resources. I would share again that all of the members of the district leadership team articulated an understanding of the need to improve equitable experiences for students and families. We did talk about the representation of people of color in both teaching and leadership roles in the district, and the district leadership did articulate a challenge in recruiting and hiring a diverse faculty and staff. That is certainly not a challenge that is unique to your districts, but it was something that came up as challenging. We did a curriculum review using the curriculum maps that are provided in the platform that the district uses to sort of collect and store all of those documents. So that curriculum review did demonstrate a need to explore how to augment the elementary level literacy program with some research supported either materials or approaches. It did indicate that there was a research supported math curriculum in the district. And it also did show that there was a lack of representation in terms of, again, like different social identities through texts or perspectives in the curriculum, and that there was some places where the content was not aligned to the grade level standard. So I just want to share some of the MCAS data and note that this data is from a couple of years ago, that the data from this year was just recently just being released only to schools. It's not fully analyzed yet. It's not publicly available. So this might change, but this is the data that we had to go on. And what you can see here is that when we say that we are looking, so what we did is we disaggregated the data by certain subgroups, and these subgroups are chosen because this is how the state disaggregates the data, and they're usually students who have been historically marginalized or at a disadvantage. And what you would hope to see is all of the color lines moving together and moving up and moving closer together because, for example, if you look at this first graph of Laura E. White, the MCAS in English, white student scores are represented by this orange line, and you see across the last few years, they stayed relatively plateaued. If you look again at this blue line, the Hispanic Latino students started off lower in 2017, did have an increase in 2018, but then in 19 and 21, that gap between white students and Latinx students increased, and you can see the direction of the line is moving downwards, so the gap is getting wider. So we noted that across the district, and again, I'll show some other schools, that there was a theme of there being, at the elementary level, widening gaps for Latinx students and also students with disabilities. I'm going to share page Hilltop. You can see again, well, the Latinx student line is here, and the white student line is here. You do see this really nice increase in ELA for Black students at page Hilltop. If you look at the high school level, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, but we'll just note, just in case, and remind us all that these numbers in 2017 and 2018 are when the state used a different test, so everyone across the state had a dip in between 18 and 19 because they changed the assessment. So it's not necessarily the decrease across the board that we would call attention to, but it is the gap widening that we would call attention to. So in the high school level, where you actually see the gap getting really quite big is for students with disabilities, that's this green line, as opposed to other subgroups that are starting to see an increase here, but the gap for students with disabilities and students without disabilities is widening. What is a high point that we saw is that the gap for Latinx students in math over the last couple of years is closing. That said, what we would hope to see is that the gap closes, we would hope to see the gap closing not because white students' performance decreased, but because everyone's performance increased. So while that gap is closing, it's still something we'd want to pay attention to. We also had some really wonderful and rich conversations with a series of stakeholder focus groups. And we gave a survey. I'm just going to share the initial findings from the conversations, the focus groups that we had for faculty and staff and for families, but I will also share some student survey data in just a few slides. So some of the initial findings for the faculty and staff were that multiple faculty and staff indicated a desire and a need for an increase in professional development that focused on effective instruction for subgroups and how to connect professional development around instruction to professional development around diversity and equity. So if you sort of connect that back to the MCAS scores, there was an awareness of some of the gaps that those scores exposed and a desire for professional development to specifically address how to work with those student subgroups that are not performing as well as their white peers or as their non-disabled peers. I will say, at each school, multiple faculty and staff articulated their appreciation for Dr. Renda and his team and a belief that this work will be led effectively, that there is buy-in at the district level for this work, and people felt that as a real positive. And there was a bit of a mix. So at each school, there were some faculty members who expressed a real desire to learn to do this work more effectively, some of whom had even perhaps engaged in some learning on their own, independent from the school. And yet also at each school, there were some faculty members who expressed a reticence to do this work, or a discomfort with doing this work. Usually that came out of feeling like they didn't know how. there were a few faculty members at the elementary school levels across the district who sort of particularly felt like they didn't know how to do this work with younger students. And so that might be an area to think about. But at the same time, both elementary schools faculty spoke very highly of a very concrete strategy that had happened in each school, which was a book audit to really look at the book for representations of all types of social identity, race, gender, etc., and an opportunity to bring new books into their classroom libraries. And they really felt that was a very concrete strategy and an effective way to make change in their practice, and I wanted to call that out as a highlight. So in terms of some initial findings from families, all across the district, families indicated that the schools are warm and inviting, that they felt safe, their students felt safe, they felt included. Many families shared specifically that they are drawn to the district or stay in the district or really value the district because of the strength of special education, that they feel like their child is known, that their child's needs in relationship to their disability are being met. And that came up time and time again. Many families indicated that they find the principals responsive and caring. On the sort of things that families would like to see change, multiple families indicated they did not perceive the academic program as rigorous. And I will say some families did not seem to express concern over that, and some did, but that was a trend. What did come up a lot was some specific concerns about a lack of representation in the curriculum and the way that holiday celebrations are currently happening. Whether that's in terms of inclusivity or in terms of how certain aspects of holidays are portrayed. And unfortunately, but again, not a unique problem to your district, multiple families of students of color did share significant concerns about specific incidents of bias from teachers. But without, and I would say that there was at least an incident sort of across the board that families raised. In terms of the stakeholder focus groups from students, we've also completed an analysis of student surveys, the vast majority of which are from students at the middle and high school level, though there are a few elementary school students who did take the survey. So I would say there were some trends that were consistent across the district and some that were really particular to one school. So there were many students at one particular school that indicated a sense of belonging and being valued at their school. There were, at the same time, many students at a different particular school that indicated concern about specific incidents in one grade level regarding racially problematic language. As a trend across the district, students of color indicated that they did not see themselves or their culture represented or valued in school or curriculum, and I will share a little bit more detail of that in a graph form in the next slides. And the students of color at the secondary level indicated that they experienced racial discrimination or inequitable treatment from peers and adults. And again, across the district, students at all grade levels, in response to questions about how challenging do you find the work, is the work here rigorous, did not sort of almost entirely did not indicate that their academic work was challenging. So I just want to share some other ways of sort of getting into a few more specifics so you can see some of the questions that we asked and some of the outcomes that left out, to us as notable. So we asked a series of questions about some different categories. One of the categories was belonging. Do students feel a sense of belonging at their school? Another category is about, do they feel like students are treated with a sense of fairness? And then yet another category is representation. So I'm going to share some data across some categories. So when we, and when I say we, I should just be clear that all these surveys were created and analyzed by the Measurement, Evaluation, Statistics, and Assessment Department of the Lynch School of Education at Boston College. So my team did not actually do this. This is being done by folks who are sort of expert in this type of program measurement using valid and reliable surveys. So what you see here is, while the majority of students agreed some of these statements, overall I feel physically safe at school, my teacher cares about my future, for example. There were other questions where the majority of students, not quite a majority of students, agreed. But what we particularly look for in an equity audit is to see if there's any statistically significant differences between subgroups. So white students indicated a higher sense of belonging than non-white students. And students who identify as non-binary or as not heterosexual or as Hispanic also indicated a lower sense of belonging. And in case it's confusing, I'll just add that because of the way that Hispanic ethnicity is not considered a race, it is, is considered an ethnicity, that some of the students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx might be white and others might identify as Afro-Latino or Afro-Latina, and this does not differentiate between them. So another thing you can see, again, this is just another way of sort of sharing that data. There's a statistically significant difference for white students feeling more connected to the adults and feeling like there's an adult other than their teacher that they can go to. And just sort of in sum overall, that that there's a difference. But where it's highlighted is where it's statistically significant. And these are just, again, different. We did not look at intersectionality. These are just different social identities that students could have.
Jen, this is pretty hard to see. If you could just give the summary, a quick summary of each slide, what it's saying.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't realize that. Thanks for letting me know. So what I would say the takeaway from this slide is that there were multiple questions on the survey, all that sort of together add up to whether students feel like a sense of belonging in school. And in almost all of the questions, there was a difference between students who, female students feel a greater, so students who identify as non-binary, so not female or male, feel a significantly less degree of belonging than students who are cisgender, and students who are straight feel significantly more belonging than students who do not identify as heterosexual or straight. This is another category on the survey about fairness. So the questions are, do teachers treat students from different backgrounds the same way? And does everyone have the same opportunity to do well and get good grades? And what you can see here is there is a pretty significant difference between students who identify as white and students who do not, with the white students perceiving a higher degree of fairness in their schools. And then again, this is about representation. So the questions are, is my culture appreciated and honored? Are my voice and opinion valued? Do I see people who look like me represented in what I study, curriculum and books? And are students and cultures valued in the school curriculum? And while there wasn't a statistically significant difference in whether my voice and opinion are valued, it's low, but not hugely. There was a pretty big difference for the other questions about representation, where students who identify as white see themselves more frequently and feel like that their culture is honored and appreciated at school, and that in general, all students' cultures are appreciated and valued in the school. And so you can see that sort of, that trend does carry through also when we look for students who identify as Hispanic or Latino, have also indicate that they see less representation or feel that cultures are less valued and appreciated at school. You don't see statistically significant differences in students in terms of their language. So moving to initial recommendations, I broke this into 4 sort of categories for recommendations for our conversation tonight. The first is around curriculum. So creation of an elementary ELA task force to review the current curriculum with an eye towards incorporating as much current or ongoing research around literacy into the curriculum. And to do some curriculum redesign using an equity lens. So an example of an equity lens is Goldie Mohammed's frameworks. And that work should be done across grade levels and disciplines and should include an increase in rigor and alignment with grade level standards. And we do want to sort of, when we highlight recommendations for change, we also want to highlight recommendations for things that should be sustained and continued because they are working well, and would highlight both the phonics curriculum in early elementary and the math curriculum in elementary as both standards aligned, research supported, shown to have impact across subgroups, and would hope that that would continue. Sort of relatedly, professional development, if you're going to make changes in curriculum, it makes sense that you would have professional development to support the teachers in making those changes. And so some suggestions for possible professional development would be unit planning using an equity lens and thinking about the counter narrative and culturally responsive teaching and action planning from data for subgroups. Again, sort of tied to the teachers focus group trend around feeling like they need help developing their own skills to address discrepancies with subgroups, to connect the equity work and the instruction work. They need a bridge. So the sort of third category around programming and physical space, just to transition to inclusive holiday celebrations, to increase visual representation of aspects of social identity and issue of social justice sort of like in the building, so there's a presence of that which will contribute to the counter narrative, and to increase student leadership opportunities to address issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in schools, especially at the secondary level. My team was really struck by the knowledge, perspective of the students we spoke with at the secondary level, and feel like there's a real asset there that could be leveraged, and that would also contribute to feelings of belonging and feeling valued at the same time. And lastly, thinking about school and district leadership, just want to continue to encourage an increase in capacity building through this sort of cycle of coaching, supervision, and professional development. And this a sort of increased expectation of accountability and action to address things that people identify as wrong or that they observe in classrooms. We did hear a few different examples of leaders not sort of knowing something wasn't quite right, but not necessarily taking a step to address it, and would want to encourage them to do that as part of their leadership. I just wanted to share with you, this is just the team who is there, myself, members of the team, all of the leadership coaches have been principals before, and then our operations team members and the doctoral candidate from the measurement and evaluation department. And I'm happy, I know that was a lot, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm happy to move back and forth through slides if that would help people center their questions in some of the data or information I shared.
Thank you very much. It was a lot. It was kind of hard to see them, but maybe we can have them later, look at them more closely for the
Yeah.
details. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to put forth?
I'll start with a comment. So I would just say thank you for putting this together. I mean, I think the tenor and the content is serious. I appreciate the tone and the focus of this equity conversation versus others that I've heard, not just in Air Shirley, but in other districts. I think it's important to shine a light in the places that we could be doing better and think about how we make sure that the entire student body, the entire teaching staff, the entire broader school community feels like they're able to be successful. So I just appreciate the time and effort that's gone into this, not only by leadership, district team, teachers, students, families, everyone who participated. I think this is hard work, and looking at data like this, it's easy to feel discouraged, but frankly, I think if we don't do it, the problem doesn't go away. And so it can be disheartening, but I'm confident that the folks in our district are eager to move forward just by the fact that we are having this conversation and we're looking at this data. So I just want to start with that because I know it can be disheartening for leaders, teachers who are working really hard to see data that's saying not every student, not every family feels represented and supported in our district. So I don't want us looking at this and feeling like there's an intent in the results that we're seeing right now, and I think the fact that we're looking at it now signals a desire by the broader community to do what's right for kids.
Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
I think I need time to process.
Yeah.
I am interested in some of the data that you showed, the survey. If you might be able to go back to those slides. And there may be some that I missed. Just curious, was this how was this collected? Was it collected through the focus groups, or was this a survey that was distributed to students?
Sure. So this slide here that you can now see, these are findings from the focus groups. So at each school, the school leader assembled a group of students to meet with us. In most cases, there were, several students, 10, 20 students, and we did sometimes have students of color in their own group, and then sometimes we had students of color and white students in the same group. We did not necessarily see any sort of correlation between what was shared, however the groups were constructed. So these findings are from the focus groups.
Okay.
If I can add to
The graph findings
Jen, I'm
are
going to
from
just
the
interrupt for
survey.
1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry, was someone?
It's Adam. I just wanted to share, we had actually sent out for 3 or 4 weekly communications an open sign up for any student in the district to sign up for that. There was some confusion in the community that we handpicked students, and that was not the case. It was a Google form that went out in my weekly communication, I believe, at least for 4 weeks, maybe more than that, where people could sign up for that. In some cases, that was enough for schools, and in other cases, we had to really get parents to do it, which is understandable. Thanks, Jen. Sorry.
No, not at all. It's an important clarification. And then these graphs that I shared, all of these that I know, and I apologize that you can't necessarily see, this data is coming from surveys. We send a survey out with a letter, to families and students explaining what it was. It was a Google form, and the social identifiers like race, gender, etc. were the last questions on the survey. But then that's how they are anonymous, but that is how we were able to look at this data.
This was actually a Qualtrics, I believe it's Qualtrics survey. It wasn't a Google form. It was the survey, it was Boston College's survey tool that they use.
Okay, I apologize. It was in Qualtrics. Great. And I believe the window that it was open was 2 weeks.
Would there be percent of participation by subgroup? Just curious, because a lot of times that tells you.
Yeah, so it was, like I said, it was mostly middle and high school students. There were 7 elementary school students across the district who completed the survey. So most of this was middle and high school students. The focus groups were larger in the elementary schools, but this was not. But what I don't have this slide included in here. I will include it in the report. What we looked at is the sort of percent of students from each subgroup represented in survey respondents, and then we compared that to the percent of students in that subgroup across the district. So for example, if 48% of the district were female, students who identified as female, we looked to see if 48% of respondents identified as female. What we did see is that for almost all subgroups, it was in a percentage point or two. So throughout the racial subgroups, ethnicity subgroups, those were proportional representation. The one place that there was a difference would be students who did not identify as either male or female. So students who were gender non-conforming in any way. There was a sizable number of students who identify that way in the surveys, but not in the official state data, which I suspect is like a data collection sorting piece that doesn't ask students whether they identify that way.
Jen, I'm just going to jump in for a second. One of the reasons, or probably the reason, there were only 7 elementary age students who filled this out is we sent this survey to parents for them to make the choice whether or not their child filled it out, because there were questions about sexuality and gender. So we felt with our middle school and high school students, there are other surveys that they take that already ask those questions. With our elementary age students, there is not, so we wanted the parents to have to make that decision, not us.
Jen, can I ask you a quick question? Is it common among the surveys that you take to have such a high response of prefer not to respond? Seems like that blue box is pretty high on most questions. I'm just wondering if that's unique to us or if that's common.
So the blue box is, if you give me a moment, I can open a different deck and give you that number. The blue box is not the number of students who preferred not to respond. It's the percent of students who preferred not to respond that agree, right? So I do think there is more. If you could just give me a moment, because I know I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I can look up that number for you and answer that question.
Yeah, and just to say out loud what I'm awkwardly whispering, which I shouldn't do, why there's a device there that's microphonic. That 57%, it's not that 57% of respondents preferred not to answer. That could be 5% of the people responding to the survey preferred not to, or the 5.
It could be 5 people.
It could be 5 people preferred not to answer. They rated an average of 57% to that question. So that's not the number. That's not showing you participation rate. That's showing you their response rate.
So I can have that. I can tell you in just a moment.
So it's 57% of the people who preferred not to.
Right. So we had, for example, 193 students who indicated their race, and 14 of them preferred not to indicate their race. 20 of them preferred not to indicate their sexual orientation.
Okay, so it's not they preferred not to answer the question. Right. They identified themselves as preferring not to respond to what they identified as whether it be race or sexual orientation.
Right. So they selected prefer not to respond.
Okay. I was just reading that wrong, thinking that they were just not answering that question, and I was like, did anybody answer a question? Because
no, I think all the questions were you had to answer, but you could choose to prefer not to respond. And so I would say that's a pretty low number, and that's pretty normal for what we see with secondary students.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
One question. So, I was not surprised to see that 50% of tasks were not on grade level, right? Like that was one of the earlier slides. I think was a pre-pandemic national trend. Not necessarily Air Shirley, again, nationally, and well-researched. I guess a question I would have in your observation, when you were observing instruction and materials that were not on grade level, how much of that was intentional as a result of trying to scaffold? I think we've heard a lot about wanting to, I'm trying not to say learning loss because it's not learning loss, but right, like I think we've been navigating this. Students were out of school for a year and a half in different ways and different instructional environments. We're playing lots of catch up. We hear lots of that. And I'm curious when, in your analysis, how much of the materials not being on grade level was intentional? And we can argue whether that's right or wrong, but was the teacher making an intentional decision, or was it more likely that the teacher didn't understand or didn't appreciate actually what is the bar of rigor set by the standards, or they were choosing materials that just were not appropriate materials for the grade level? They were, right, like.
Could I try saying it another way?
Yes, please.
Are we talking about grade level content or grade level standards?
So I would say I have a couple thoughts about that. I think it's a really excellent question. There's some nuance there. I don't actually think I could give you an accurate answer because at no point, so what we have a way that we analyze classes. You know, we collect this data. We looked at lots and lots of classes. At no point did I ask the teacher, like, why did you choose this task? So I don't think I could fairly or accurately speak to what the teacher's intent was. I could probably describe a few trends from within that. So one would be that the actual materials, like the materials in front of students were not aligned with grade level standards. So I can't speak to why the teacher chose those materials, or if the teacher chose those materials, or if they were given to the teacher. I don't know. It was more often than not the task or the materials themselves, as opposed to the task was at grade level standard, and then the teaching lowered the standard through a whole bunch of scaffolding, or the teacher didn't have the kids complete the whole task and watered it down or something like that. It was mostly it was like a curriculum issue, not a pedagogical issue,
Okay.
by and large.
Great. Or not great, but helpful.
Well, fixable.
So I'm just curious about, so you had some of the next steps, and one of the next steps was around forming a task force. I'm just interested, does that go through potentially our existing DEI group, or?
Well, that was specifically for elementary ELA, so I would defer to Mr. Caleri, but I would imagine we would want early literacy experts on that, so teachers. But that's I don't want to speak for you.
Yep, no,
Yeah.
that's fine, absolutely
Yeah.
accurate. But that's work that's already is beginning in earnest.
We have groups that are doing similar work that would make sense to continue to do this work, or shift it a bit.
In any of the data, whether it's achievement or opinion data, was any of it screened by using economic status as a filter?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that question. Could you say it a little bit louder, or could someone closer maybe say it?
On any of the, in your data collection and analysis, as we look at the bar charts there, was any of those categories were the responses screened for responses by economic status, family's economic status?
Not in our survey. The MCAS data, the state obviously tracks it like that. In our survey, we did not. that's frequently not like sort of in this general practice of surveys that that question gets a little bit clouded by students' own perception of their economic status. And it's a little bit harder to like make clear divisions for categories. We did not ask it, and the sort of measurement department did not ask it. It's not something we usually see or that we usually use when we use these surveys. So the only data that I'd have to point to that is from the MCAS in this presentation.
Anyone else? I'm sure it was on the slides, and I'm sure when we look at this later, it might be a little clearer. But when you were had a sample group, what was the largest sample that you had? Was that at the high school, at secondary school?
In the surveys?
Yeah.
Sorry,
the number of
largest
surveys,
group of what?
The number of surveys that you were evaluating. So how many parents responded, and how many? There were only 7 elementary kids in the whole survey for 2 elementary schools.
Yeah, so in the surveys, there were 7 elementary school students, 120 middle school students, and 45 high school students in the survey. I don't yet have the complete analysis of the family survey or the teacher survey. I should have access to that soon, and we'll incorporate it into the final report. In the focus groups ranged from 4 to about 20.
So is that teachers and students, or just students?
So, for example, we would have at one school, we talk to, because we usually have multiple focus groups, like one in the morning, one in the afternoon. You know, at one school, maybe we talked to 4 parents, and at another school, we talked to 30 parents.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, it was probably on your slides. I just couldn't see it.
The number of people in the focus group was not on the slides. I can, we can incorporate that and share that later, but that wasn't on the slide.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, just to ask a follow-up question there. We should just, I'm not a statistician, but we can generally make the assumption that the data that you're sharing with us is statistically significant. Like, I know it's easy sitting in our seat to want to say, oh, well, that might only be 4 kids, or that's I'm
not trying to do that.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying to assert any intent. What I'm saying is we should assume that data being shared with us through this, if it's data, it's gone through some validity checks. And it's psychometrically sound.
So I would say that is actually why we partner with it's like sort of one of the perks of being a part of the university. That's why we partner with this department. We are also not statisticians, but they are.
Yep.
And when you have the slides in front of you, you'll be able to see that it's actually indicated when the difference is statistically significant.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. And you should certainly assume that all of the survey tools have been tested to be valid and reliable measures of what they claim to be measuring.
Great. Yeah, and part of why I'm asking again is not intent of our current board administration or folks in this room. I think again, when I've heard data presented talking about these issues, it's, we talk about, well, that's only 4 kids, that's only 3 kids. And the reality is we're talking about a district, we're talking about some relatively important issues, important experience that's impacting students' ability to be successful in school and beyond. And so, I think making sure that we are not second guessing the tools that are being used, assuming that the tools being used are sound and valid.
We will be giving a panorama survey soon to students and parents. We will be able to use those results. There are some similar questions to correlate this data. The other thing that I think is important to remember is that every single teacher, staff member, administrator, when they come to work, they don't come to work to make any kids feel different, right? They come to work in a school district, because they care about kids and they want what's best for kids. And this is how some of our kids are feeling. So we have, this and I said this earlier today. We went over this with building principals and central office administrators. And we have two choices, right? We can sit and argue some of this data if we like. We're all good at arguing. Or we can realize this is how some of our kids feel. This is their perception. That doesn't mean it's that our intent is to make them feel like that, but the impact of it is. So we have this data, and now we can action plan to change it. And to me, that's the valuable piece of this. The other thing that I would say is if we are courageous enough, if the school committee is courageous enough to have this done, you're going to see many, many school districts doing equity audits in the next few years. I don't think you would see a huge difference in any district. They're going to see the same things. This is how, when there's a dominant culture and there's kids from marginalized groups are going to feel this. And so we stick our head in the sand, we can deny it, or we can take the data and we can action plan to get better. And that's certainly our plan. And I think we are already taking some of the steps. Some of the things that is being highlighted in this, we saw when we were doing the entry plan, the superintendent's entry plan, and we've already started the work. Co-teaching, the tiered system of social emotional support, and of course the equity audit was the third one on there. So it is tough to hear this, but I think everyone involved in this should be applauded for doing it and having the courage to do it, because it's not easy work. It's not easy to hear.
Thank you. Anyone else in the committee? Thank you, guys.
I will just say thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm excited about the results that will come from this. And I also like the slides that talked about, with the recommendation, not only the opportunities we have, but also the things that are going right. That's always a good thing, I think, to hear, and the things that you want to sustain. So I appreciate the work from everybody, really, truthfully. It's a step forward in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing the final results. I look forward to being able to read the numbers.
You should have it now.
I'm happy to
My
answer
apologies.
any, questions via email or in any way that makes sense. If, as you look at it, more questions come up. And again, of course, when we submit the final report. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Take care.
You too, thanks.
Anybody from the back row over there have anything they wanted to add to that? They're awfully quiet over there.
This is the point. The discussion is the point, and the self-awareness and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And that if we do it well and we are committed to it, then it's going to lead to different perspective taking. And as adults, we need to model that for our kids.
Right. Thank you, Mary Beth. If we can, do we need to move on? So just before we adjourn into executive session, I would ask if there's any public comment showing up on our.
I can share it on the screen with you.
Mary Beth, do you have something you'd like? Mary Beth Hamill, would you like to speak at the podium?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Been a long time since I've stood at this podium. So I wanted to just provide a little context for the vote that you're about to take this evening, and let you know that in 2009 to 2010, when I was the curriculum director for Air Public Schools, I also had a little part-time job as the interim superintendent of the new region. And we followed the work of the Transitional School Committee that met for a couple of years before the interim school committee was formulated. What happened during that particular year was the 1 year that we were given by the Department of Education to work on regional relations, was there were so many tasks to complete that we actually ran out of time to have a discussion and a vote on the spousal benefits for the insurance. However, there are documents, including meeting minutes, that indicate that was always on the regional timeline. And it was always the intent of both the transitional committee and the interim regional school committee that met for 1 year before the formal committee took over to move forward and take action on that vote, which would have, there was a lot of discussion. In the end, the intent was to support that particular action of 32B. We just ran out of time to have that vote on our agenda.
Thank you.
So just to make sure I'm very clear then, it was to vote in support of adopting
Yes.
32B.
Yes. We had to take the insurance vote first to make sure that by July 1 of the new regional year, to use the words of a former interim superintendent, George Frost, we had to make sure that insurance cards were in the hands of all employees on July 1, and I'm sure many of you will remember that conversation. That was the first of that Chapter 32 statute, and I think we made that vote right before that first year ended and the more permanent committee took over.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment, Mr. Tebow?
No, not this time.
Then we'll close public comment, and I would entertain a motion to go into executive session, because I don't think we can continue with the agenda without that.
So moved.
Seconded?
Roll call?
Mr. President?
Aye. Thank you.
No,
Mrs. Fraser?
supposed to do this.
Aye.
Mrs. Quincy?
Aye.
Mrs. Bijou?
Aye.
Mr. Rubin?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Recording in progress.
Are we ready, technical, everyone? Okay. We will reconvene the regular session of the Air Shirley Regional School Committee at, I can't see that quite, 8:20?
8:18. 8:18 on my computer.
8:18 on Michelle's computer, which it has to be accurate. It's a computer, so it has to be accurate.
Right.
So we have, we would move to the consent agenda. We have the minutes from May 18th, 2022, regular session minutes for release. And we also have a warrant memo, warrant number 1160 dated 5/27/2022 for $967,384.18. We have payroll warrant number 24 dated 5/18 for $825,214.27. And we have payroll warrant dated 5/18 for $14,981.00. I will entertain a motion to to approve the consent agenda. Are any questions?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. We have completed the 8th item and gone into new business, coming up to 9D, which is ratification of the 2022-2025 ASRSD agreement. Dr. Rinda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm asking the school committee to ratify the 2022 through 2025 ASRSD agreement. We had scheduled 6 meetings for these negotiations and only used 6. We did not have to ask for more. I was impressed with the spirit of the negotiations. I believe it's a fair contract on both sides.
And the feedback that I had from the union was that it was very good, very good sessions, and they were pleased. Is there a motion to approve the Air Shirley Regional School Committee and the Air Shirley Regional Educational Association contract for 2022 to 2025?
I'll make that motion that we approve the contract with between the Air Shirley Regional School Committee and the Air Shirley Regional Education Association for 2022 to 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let it be recorded that it's unanimous. Thank you very much for everybody who worked on this. A number of us understand what's involved with that, and glad that you guys did it.
Thank you.
The next item that we have under new business is recommendation to request permission of the Municipal Finance Oversight Board, MFOB, to issue bonds for long-term financing of the athletic fields complex project. Mr. Plunkett, if you please.
Yes, in your packets, you have a memo dated today, June 7th, which outlines the Municipal Finance Oversight Board, how they are requiring us to have a separate vote of the school committee as the authority to request that we be able to submit an application for a state qualified bond for our high school athletic field project financing. I bulleted several advantages to the district. Principal and interest payments are deducted from our district state aid, our Chapter 70, automatically. The state pays the bondholders directly. We still assess the member towns for the debt service, and it allows us to qualify for higher rated bonds, which we will get a better rate on the market. We'll get a lower interest rate on the market. We utilize this program for the high school renovation project with our 30-year note that we have outstanding right now, and it has worked very well. And I think it's under Chapter 44A. We just didn't get it into the vote that we took back in 2018 to when we initially approved the borrowing for the field project. So they need a separate vote of the board to be able to take a look at our application to approve of an application for us for qualified bonds. So the second page in this packet is the vote, a copy of the vote. The first and third paragraphs are basically attestations for the secretary, and I'll need a signature if it's in the affirmative. And the middle paragraph where it says voted, that is basically what the motion would be if you're so inclined to want to take advantage of this under Chapter 44A. And then the last page is just the law itself, Chapter 44, Section 2, right out of the MGL of Massachusetts.
Massachusetts general laws. So, does anybody have any questions or comments on the procedure for this? Hearing and seeing none, I would accept the motion. If you would like to do it yourself, or if you want me to read it, and then we can do it, it's up to you. Would anybody like to make that motion about accepting the, I'm going to say it wrong.
I'll make it.
Proposed vote to authorize for state qualified bonds.
I'll make a motion that we give permission to the district treasurer or any other officer of the district to file an application with the appropriate officials of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to qualify under Chapter 44A of the general laws and to provide such information and execute such documents as such officials of the Commonwealth may require in connection therewith.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any comment or discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Money, honey. So that takes care of our new business that we have, and we're up to Dr. Renda's superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 3 updates in this week's or month's superintendent's report. First is along the same lines, field project financing. We will need to convene the school committee in July, hopefully on July 20th, to approve the sale of the bond for the athletic field project. This can be held virtually or when is most convenient for the majority of school committee members.
I've already surveyed most of the people, and it seems like that at this point is very doable, and we might get something else on that agenda.
Okay, thank you. The state has updated their COVID guidelines on May 25th. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education updated the guidelines for schools. Specifically, DESE amended the guidelines for students who are close contact and asymptomatic regardless of vaccination status. We wanted to provide you with these changes, and our nurse leader, Renee Payne, put this together for us. So students who are close contact and asymptomatic, regardless of vaccination status, are able to attend school without having to quarantine. This is very different. Before, they would have to quarantine, and their quarantine would, their last 5 days of quarantine would be on their last day of exposure to the virus. For instance, if you have a sibling who tested positive, their last day of quarantine is day 5. That would start you on your 6th day of quarantine if you are a close contact. So this is a substantial change. Did I say that right? I did say that right.
Could you
So-
just say the first part of that again?
So if you were a
everybody's
close
clear on it?
contact and did not test positive for COVID, you had to quarantine for 10 days. If you caught COVID, you only had to quarantine for 5. Make sense?
So then the
That is
close-
now changed.
For the close contact now.
So now, students who are close contacts and asymptomatic, regardless of whether or not they're vaccinated, are able to attend school without having to quarantine.
Without having to quarantine. Very different.
So the guidance for students who are either COVID positive or students who are symptomatic has not changed. And we'll just review that quickly. Students who are COVID positive need to isolate for 5 days and may return to school after day 5, provided that the symptoms have improved and that the student wears a mask through day 10. If the student is unable to mask, they must have a negative test on day 5 or later to return to school. Right? That has not changed. Students who are symptomatic in school can remain in school if they consent to symptomatic testing at school and the test is negative. Students will be sent home if they do not consent to at-school testing, and the student can return if they test negative or if they have been fever-free for 24 hours without use of fever-reducing medications and their symptoms have resolved or a medical professional makes an alternative diagnosis. That make sense?
Are they making any distinction as to what test this is?
It's
Because-
a,
Is it
no.
The rapid test, yeah.
No, it is, it
Is
could
it
be a
still-
rapid or a PCR test.
Right.
We'll just let the clock run out a couple of weeks and pick it up in September.
Less than 10 days of school left, right?
There is.
Fortunately, we still have guidelines to follow for
As
the
I say, you
extended
got
school
that-
year program.
All I have to say is you could get COVID and come back before the school year's
You
out.
could, and I would not put it past Desi to change the guidelines before school ends.
Well, you could have 2 more updates between now and the
We
last.
could. So we do have a rather extensive sports update that was submitted by the athletic director, Mr. Kendall. Unfortunately, to everybody's disappointment, including mine, I will be reading the athletic update because he is enjoying the Paul McCartney concert at Fenway Park right now.
Oh.
The spring season was quite successful, both in numbers of participants as well as the field. IJ Izajuku was named the Harry Aganis MIAA Female Scholar Athlete of the Year at the MIAA Women's in Sports Day. Only one male and one female senior in the state win this award. It's incredibly prestigious. Fellow senior Alicia Town was recognized for her leadership at the event. Congratulations to them both. Baseball is currently in Division 5 state playoffs. The Panthers earned a thrilling 8-7 walk-off win over Sturgis Charter in the round of 32 as Tyler Crawford drove in the tying run, followed by Zach Sabolo's game-winning hit. The Panthers are now 14-6 on the season and will travel to Carver for the Sweet 16 game at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, June 8th, tomorrow. Next week.
No, that's
wait.
tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Excuse me. It's
I
been
know,
a
it's
long
okay.
couple weeks.
It's all right.
Did I mention I have a 10-month-old? Varsity coach Billy Wright, who is also our football coach, was honored at the Joseph Muwaney Foundation at their annual football banquet for his lifetime contributions to high school football in Central Mass. Congratulations to Coach Wright. JV baseball had a great season. Coach Mark Goodrich did a nice job with the young team, which included 2 8th graders. Track enjoyed a hugely successful season, winning the Mid-Watch E Championship in both boys and girls. The boys also continued its unbeaten dual meet streak, now at 34 straight, all despite not having a home track on which to practice. IJ Izajuku, 100 and 200, Jacob Calgren, 110 hurdles, in the 4x100 girls relay team, Isa Juku, Tori Salmon, Jordan Kazakowski, Sandra Eli Johnson, all won Division VI state titles. Salmon was second in the javelin at the all-state meet. Isa Juku was third in the 100 and fourth in the 200, while Calgren was fifth in the hurdles. Salmon was 11th in the state in javelin, while the 4x100 team set a PR personal record and finished ninth. Izujuku, Calgren, Salmon all qualified for the New Balance Nationals and will compete at the University of Pennsylvania on June 18th. Coaches Seguin, St. Germain, and Kendall, Athletic Director Kendall, will also attend, with restorative practices specialist Mrs. Kendall serving as a female chaperone. 17 Air Shirley Regional Middle School students will be competing at the state middle school track and field competitions this Saturday, June 11th at Gardner High School. Thank you to the coaches Chris Donovan, Mike Seguin, and Andrew St. Germain, GJ Richards. Andrew and GJ are both alum, and Jessa Bryan for their expertise and dedication. The softball team battled through some adversity and narrowly missed the state playoffs. They did end their season with an impressive 3-2 win over Westboro in Central Mass Athletic Directors Association Tournament. Congratulations to the girls on a great season. The Panthers graduate just one senior from this squad and should be in the mix of things next spring. The JV team, coached by Kim Melanson, showed improvement and they battled throughout the season. Girls lacrosse, a co-op with Groton Dunstable, had 4 Air Shirley students. Freshman Carly Iwa is part of the varsity team, which faces Dartmouth Wednesday, June 8th at 4 in the opening round of the state tournament. Fellow freshmen Kira Fallon, Maddie Leone, and Malia Figueroa were key parts of the JV squad. Senior Mason Pyatt was the lone senior member of the boys co-op lacrosse team in Lunenburg. Unified Track had a great season under coaching of Chad Lindstrom, Emily de Blasio, and Lakeisha Nunez. Middle school student Dylan Mayorga in Midwatch League champion was the Midwatch League champion in the 400. Fellow middle school students Grant Bika and Tommy Gianetti, Ben Mason, Cole Hillman, all placed at leagues. High school students Nick Riley, Jack Hillman, Josh Mayorga, Maven Nasaf, and Nick Dutton also had great seasons, while Tim Billings served as the team's manager. Middle school softball had an outstanding season under the coaching of Mike LeClaire and volunteer assistant coach Dorothy Miner. The Panthers went 9-4, and the future certainly looks bright for Air Shirley softball. The middle school baseball team had a solid season, showing great improvement under the tutelage of Coach Josh Melanson. With a ton of 8th graders, it looks like the Panther baseball is in good shape for the future. There will be a number of sports camps offered this summer. Air Parks will team with soccer coaches Mark Justo, Justin Carlson, and Panther soccer camp on the Panther soccer camp, and Corey Phillips and Dallas Neely for the Panthers basketball camps. Track coach Andrew St. Germain will run a summer-long strength and speed camp based out of New Fitness Center at the high school, while Assumption University head baseball coach Mike Rocco will run a 2-day baseball softball camp at the Prentice Kaufman Fields behind Lower A. White in July. Registrations for fall sports are already ongoing. Get registered early as practice starts August 19th for football and golf and August 22nd for high school cross country, soccer, and volleyball. Middle school soccer and unified sports will begin once school starts.
Fantastic. Please give all the wonderful athletic coaches and assistants, because we know how hard they work and give of themselves, and it's obviously what a great job they do, even though the results are not part of how much work they put into it. It's really good.
Yeah, and terrific results, and considering we're a
The
rather
size
small
of the school?
district, it's impressive. Impressive. Yeah.
I'm sure all of us agree to that, so we could take a vote.
I will make sure Mr. Kendall does not have a concert for the next sports update.
We can make him come back next week
He does
and do it
enough.
all over again. Thank you.
And that is all for the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Ongoing business, item number 11 on our agenda tonight is Chapter 32B-7D, Surviving Survival, I don't have my glasses on, Spouse Benefit. Mr. Plunkett, Doctor, I just gave you the degree. That's really good.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. We have provided proposed motion. If the board is inclined to take a vote on Section 9D of Chapter 32B, which provides for surviving spouse benefits for insured employees and retirees of the district at 50%.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I can make a motion if we're ready for that. In
We'll
order
discuss it after.
In order to authorize the regional school district to pay 50% of the medical insurance premium for the coverage of a surviving spouse of an insured employee or retiree, I move that the regional school committee accept the provisions of Section 9D of Chapter 32B of Massachusetts General Laws.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments that anyone would like to make before we vote? Seeing and hearing none, I would accept, I would call for a vote on that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Our next thing is policy review report. I don't know who wishes to take it, so I'll look one side and I'll look the other, and you guys can choose if you want.
Sure. So last meeting, we brought Section A. We have not met with MASC since then, but we are hoping to do is have a vote to approve in form,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect, or?
I don't know what that means.
Right, there you go. There's a question.
I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't hear you. Which
I don't know, approve in form.
So approve in form is with the way that we drafted Section A, because we're not gonna approve the entire policy book until we've gone through all the sections. So what we're doing is, once we go through Section A and we make the changes, we're gonna come and approve in form, and then we'll go to the next section until we get through the entire book. And then that way, that will be our did I say policy? It'll be our book. Sorry, guys.
I had, I don't know, other people had questions on some policy, or any comments on others. How do you want to go through this?
If you have,
Did you have a response?
obviously
Okay.
you do.
No, no, go ahead.
I mean, before, if you have a question on accepting the whole thing, if there's questions, I would like to think that basically, while this policy book that people are doing a wonderful job of struggling through, it's still a living document. We always could come back and review any individual policy and change it as times dictate or other things needed to be added. This is not an etched in stone item that never changes from now on. So I think keeping that in mind is a good thing to do. But Jim, if you have something that's critical, if you have them listed out.
We're updating policies that we're going to put in the manual, so if they get cleaned up now, fine. If not, I'll just bring it forward. On page 14, policy EC, I just find the wording of the second paragraph awkward. I'm not really sure how what we're trying to say there on the second paragraph.
Would you
Page
read it
14.
first and then have what questions you have?
Air Shirley Regional School District does not exclude from participation, deny the benefits of Air Shirley Regional School District from or otherwise discriminate against individuals. So I'm not really sure where they're going, where that's going, and it just seems a little duplicitous. It just needs to be cleaned up, wordsmithed a little bit.
I'm just pulling up, that might have been one that we were asked to take from the Attorney General.
That's why it's written that way.
the sentence itself
Right,
doesn't
right.
make any sense to me. So I don't know, I mean, the policy manual is gonna be read by the people in the community.
Totally, I would say that is probably why it reads that way.
Do you think it's intended to have that, like the Air Shirley Regional School District spelled out in both spots? I'm just curious.
That is,
It seems like that repetition of the Air Shirley Regional School District doesn't really need to be there.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up, so I'm looking at a version that you're looking at.
Deny the benefits of.
If you just read it straight and continuous, it seems like that's almost a
Yeah, I'm wondering.
typographical thing going on.
So what I would say is it would be very easy, what would be great is if there are notes, if we could get them in writing. We do have a meeting with Dorothy. We said in our last meeting that we would bring these back to Dorothy. We would get this worked through. I think as we go through the handbook, what we would like to try to do is be able to bring at least one section a month to this group to have review one, approve a second. That's the sort of pace that we need to be able to work at so that we can, one, take advantage of this mask work and make Michelle's life manageable and make our district have policies that have been updated.
Right.
So I think if there are written,
So if I
like,
could
yeah.
suggest, then maybe that, Jim, if you could submit those to the subcommittee, and then I know it's short time, and we do have
Say
other,
when's our next meeting?
next week,
Wednesday.
Wednesday
Okay.
next week.
When's our next meeting with Dorothy?
June 16th.
June 16th.
That's
The
the
day
day,
after.
the day
Day
after.
after.
But we could slow it down a little bit, and, because we are, that's another example of that, July 20th, a good time to
I was
do
gonna
things
say,
like
then
that in a
hopefully-
summer meeting. That would be the efficient way to do it.
Yeah,
Where
so
we
if,
have time to think.
so if you're able to share anything in writing, do we have section B in a place where folks can
I believe.
also look at it?
We don't yet.
Right, we're
We can
waiting for
get
that back, okay.
We can get that prepared, and then that way, if we kind of operate, and this is just my suggestion, when we're reviewing the drafts, if everyone wants to write their notes and then email it to myself and Chris, then that way we'll continue to move forward instead of coming here and then we kind of have to stall a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so I realize right now our meetings are not synced up.
That's okay.
I think we
we're
can
gonna
get to
through
that
this.
point.
It doesn't have, there's no timeline.
Right, and so ideally, suggestions get brought to the subcommittee and they could be shared via writing, email. And so that's where we can give input, and then in these meetings, we can keep moving and
Okay.
try to get through the handbook in a year.
Okay, so then if we can have maybe this
So maybe
item
we-
tabled
So
tonight?
we can table this to the 16th. If there's suggestions, we can take those. Because,
If we have if you have the suggestions in a day or two, right? Sounds
That-
like Jim has them already, so he can
And
just send them
written.
to you.
Jim, can I just,
Something you could-
Jim, just out of curiosity, is it like wordsmithing or is it like substantive?
Some are both.
Okay, I'm just,
I see duplication in other areas, I got a couple of areas that, between policies that kind of contradict each other, so.
Okay, good. What's the will of the committee here?
so if we're able to get in writing, and they could be, feel free to pass them, turn in your notes or email your notes. We will bring them to mask. We should not have this on the agenda at our next meeting, because we will not be meeting with mask until the 16th.
Right?
But coming out of the 16th, we'll have this updated, have gone through B, and we will hopefully bring those in form on the 20th for voting in July.
so
Okay.
is it possible for you to get us when you have them
B, yeah.
before the 20th?
Yes.
Maybe even B and C or whatever you have?
Whatever we have, we'll get to you
Then we
following
can
that meeting, and we can hopefully
keep
work.
pushing it
Well, and
along.
perhaps maybe this is onerous, but, and then people.
And anyone who would like to participate, it is a publicly posted meeting. And anyone and everyone, including the public, is welcome to attend
It's a public posted meeting, yes.
that meeting on the 16th.
And anyone who finds something, maybe if everybody has everybody's emails, which I think we just got tonight, then perhaps you could just send it to the whole committee and give them a little heads up then as to what's coming up.
So I don't think we need a vote.
Okay?
But I think we can.
Let's vote maybe then to table this until the 20th of July.
Do you need a motion?
Well, it would just be neat.
Okay.
Be neat for the minutes.
Okay.
So what's
So I
going
make a
on.
motion that we table this vote until July 20th?
July 20th. I would second that motion.
So
Any other-
is,
go ahead,
yeah, is
Michelle?
July 20th a school committee meeting? I mean, I'm just,
It's a Wednesday.
Right, but is it-
It's been referenced as a possible meeting date.
okay. I just was not aware of a July 20th, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay, well, we could just table it, we don't have to give it time.
Okay.
Right.
So I
Right.
make a motion that we table this vote.
Second.
All in favor? Since we
Aye.
discussed it already. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? That's a unanimous vote. Chairperson's notes, I'm sure I had some before I started today, but after my day, I have none. Other topics for discussion not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of this meeting? Hearing none, do we have communications by our secretary?
Yes, thank you.
Who is the secretary?
Secretary is Erica.
I'm sorry.
She's new.
Distracted.
Let's give her a moment to eat her candy.
Yep.
Only if she shares.
She's sharing.
On the way.
They're
Oh, it's
passing,
on the
they're
way.
coming
Even
down.
better.
Okay.
Thanks, Erica.
All right. Announcements. Wednesday, June 8th, which is tomorrow, there's Page Hilltop Spring Concert at 6 to 7 p.m. at Page Hilltop. Also, tomorrow, there's a Special Education Parent Advisory Council meeting at 6:30. It does not have a location on there, so I don't know where it's at.
It's usually in Page Hilltop, isn't it?
Remote.
I'm sorry?
What's remote?
Oh, it's a remote, it's remote. On Thursday, June 9th, the high school is having a spring concert from 6 to 8 at the high school. On Friday, June 10th, there is 8th grade graduation at 6 p.m. at the middle school. Tuesday, June 14th, there's 90-minute early release for grades 9 through 11. Lunch will be served and the dismissal time is 12:50 p.m. Also on June 14th, the PTO is having a meeting at 6:30 at the middle school. There's also the 8th grade semi-formal from 6 to 9 p.m. On June 16th, there's a 90-minute early release for the high school. Lunch will be served and then we'll dismiss at 12:50. On June 15th, we have a school committee meeting, 6:30 at the middle school. At June 16th, I think this is repeated twice.
It is the 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Thank you. Those are 90-minute early release days for the high school. Then on Thursday, June 16th, Page Hilltop Family Fun Festival is from 5 to 8:30 at Page Hilltop. And the policy subcommittee will also be meeting June 16th from 6:30 to 8:30 via Zoom. Friday, June 17th is the last day of school for students. It's a half day. And the dismissal time for high school and middle school is 11:20. And for the elementary schools is 12:15. And that's it.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, thank you very much. Anything else anyone wishes to bring up? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:50.
So moved.
Seconded.
Who wants it?
Just give it to someone who hasn't done it.
Record.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That is unanimous vote. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice evening.
Who's candies?